podcast you cheer for. Sneaker business talk. It's the Soul Material Podcast.
And we're back once again. It's the Soul Material crew. It's T-Mark, the Street Shark.
And OGEO.
All right, and we're back for another episode of that sneaker business talk from the podcast you cheer for, Soul Material. So, really wanted to, we always dive into different layers to different topics because that's kind of how we do over here. Just giving you that clarity over popularity about what's going on. So we just wanted to just dive into some technical aspects to the sneaker game. And we're talking technology, all right, those tech specs of what's going on inside of the shoes, because there's been a long lineage of evolution for multiple brands to where we're at today. So we just wanted to touch on that timeline as Soul Material crew does, just and then mix in some personal stories and, some of our preferences along the way. And we've kind of teased it in other episodes when we talked about marketing campaigns and how they, influence what's going on, whether the technology was super sound or not. Sometimes you got away with it just by good marketing. You know what I'm saying? So, and we told you we were those cereal box kids, so we're influenced from the beginning. So I think that's what makes us the Shark and OG, and why we're savvy about what we do. So we kick it to you, OG. Get us started with that sneaker business talk, sneaker technology.
Appreciate it, Shark. Just off the break, when I first think about, as you mentioned, campaign, whether it worked, solidified things or not, the first thing that comes to mind, the first time I got a black top, and it was the Reebok Pump, 9 years old. And, the advertising, the campaigns for that, but just having, as a kid, almost like a toy on your foot, in which something that you pushed and you felt something. And it was so evolutionary at that time. I used to have one foot pumped and one foot not pumped, and then have the other one to switch, and then have that release button on your shoe.
Yeah, the release button was crucial.
Yes, and just hearing the air come out. Critical. I just remember I went from being a Pro Wings kid and Payless shoes because I used to just kill shoes all the time, to again having that first. I was a part of that first group of having that Air Max 187 and saying, oh my gosh, I need to keep up with my shoes, because if I keep up with my shoes, I would get more of these. But the Reebok Pump is the first thing that comes to mind. And over the years, I've gotten older, and comfort as opposed to nostalgia and look become more important. The first shoe I really put on my foot and said, oh my gosh, this is definitely something a little bit different. More recent has definitely been the Boost technology with Adidas, and particularly with them using Michelin tire rubber with the Boost and that type of thing. So a lot of times I even will experience or experiment with having an insole in and out of a shoe, maybe buying a half size bigger or a half size smaller, and doing anything just to get the maximum comfort. And I'm not being a true runner and so forth. Those just kind of blew me away as far as comfort goes. But just historically, I can tell you also, after the Reebok Pump, there was something about that Asics gel. I remember a couple of shoes sold out, and mom just brought home like these basic gray gel Asics. And man, I put those on my foot, and I have a wide foot. So it's the reason why I, from DC, always wore basketball shoes or New Balances. But something about that Asics gel and that technology, when it first dropped, it wasn't as hard or as stiff. And of course, it sounds ancient now, but back then it was literally having a cloud on your foot. So that was like, to me, Boost in the 80s or early 90s for real was that Asics gel. But those are the ones that come to mind instantly when I think about just moments in my head when I just think back to, oh my gosh, I remember this, I remember that. Those are definitely my four releases, or my four technologies. But there's so much involved now, because every year Nike, Flyknit, so forth. But I'll let you now take it off, Shark, because I mentioned my four, And I know you have a whole lot more that I'm not even digging into because a whole lot of brands have done a whole lot of things. And some I know you have in your vault that people probably don't know about that you mentioned before that you have trained in, practicing, even played in, that will be some of the best shoes and the best comfort and some of the best performances ever.
Yeah. So, on that timeline, I think, 80s, 90s, especially going into 2000s, but like 80s, 90s, that era, you didn't have but so much technology, or technology wasn't um this functional technology that just keeps evolving. Like every year there's something new, that wasn't going on. What I mean? It was, Nike Air, and then like that, and it was like how many things you can put air in, rather than like evolving the air to make it fit something. And then you got into that into the 90s with like up tempos and length, full length zoom, instead of just the pods and everything like that. So so I say all that to say, since the technology was so basic, from my intro, it was a lot of marketing going on. So yeah, Reebok pump was I think for me, the pump, the D Brown dunk contest probably got me more than anything else. I might have told this story before, but I remember being in youth league or whatever and having my Reebok pumps on, and it was like one of the times like I stepped on somebody's foot and twisted my ankle, and then like I remember like my dad like helping me like relace my shoe, and then he was like, pump them up, you know what I mean? So I pump them up, and then I just mentally felt like, oh, I'm good. My ankle not hurt. I just got the pump. You know what I'm saying? It's like an air cast. You know what I'm saying? And just got back out there and played and won the game and everything like that. So just those moments like I'll never forget. Another one of my favorite shoes, the Converse Aero Jams with the Grandma Moss, like this, especially the beginning of the React Juice. Like that was advertised as technology. It had the little hang tag with the explanation of what was going on and everything like that. Like React Juice is gonna move and you move and everything like that. When really it was like this little gel bubble on the back of the heel that just it looked like a little leveler, like where you do construction or whatever, where we got to, line up the bubble in the liquid or whatever. So that's what that looked like, where it just moved back and forth. And but I remember the commercial, and because he's like, Grandma Ma's coming down the court, and then he like steps hard on the hardwood and then like turns into a cartoon, and then you see the shoe like move around and everything. And I was like, oh, you got me. But I love that shoe. And then so the other styles of technology at that time was just like putting a strap on something. It's like you got locked down, Jordan 8s, because that wasn't, that's kind of a bulky, non-breathable shoe. You know what I'm saying? But it has the, that like Hirachi boot inner, you know what I mean? The smoothing it out the ride a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So, but like you weren't thinking about that at that time. You know what I'm saying? You weren't even thinking that they were heavier than the sevens. But at the same time, so like other Nike basketball shoes, they might have a strap, and there was a wave of high school years of team shoes with and then all it was straps or interchangeable straps. You know what I'm saying? So and that's technology. But then you get into the Vince Carter area, and then you're boinging around with the shocks, and then you're just like, wait, what is this shock that don't even look like it's comfortable? You know what I mean? It doesn't even look like it gives. How does it spring? But it worked. You know what I'm saying? I'm maybe more for basketball than anything else, not the running or anything. But yeah, so I just those things stuck out to me. But then I just think of like Gary Payton's with the zipper, just those things that are different. But that was there for. That was technology, like the gloves with the, that was functionable for the wrap, and then the zipper, the way that it locked down with the Velcro tab, the way you had the monkey paw, to have the stability on the ankle on the inside, like that stuff was cool, and it was very innovative because it was like so outside the box, and I could just think of so many other different ways, you know what I mean? But then, you had other brands doing stuff like Converse, they had those, they tried to do, and more like, I guess more like past Dennis Rodman, but like it stopped at Dwayne Wade when he tried to do the Converse thing, you know what I mean? Like some of there, and it had to do like redo some Dr. J's or whatever. But they're, this was before Converse was acquired by Nike. So you could tell that, they were trying to compete, you know what I mean? But their technology looked so basic, or it looked like the combination of other people's stuff, like the look. They almost had a shoe that looked like the cartridge shoe from the McGrady
I remember.
for the Adidas, because Adidas was just going all types of ways, because Adidas might have been the first one to put like a chip in your shoe and do some climate cool stuff with a chip in it.
The climate, oh my gosh, that material.
You know what I'm saying? Like, cool. Yeah, where it's like breathable on the bottom of the shoe. You know what I'm saying? And then Climate Cool made it into some basketball shoes too, like some Tim Duncans or whatever. But like I feel like I forgot off the top of my head which McGrady that was, but that was like jumping the shark. You know what I mean? Where it, like, I get the Reebok had the instant pump, you had the regular pump for the Shaq, and then you had the Shaq Attack where it had the cartridge, or the yellow cartridge and pump that you had to really like lock it in and then pump it. Like you couldn't just pump it from the thing. Like you could release it, but you had to have the extra, like a CO2 cartridge, like you about to go fast and furious on them. But like when that was similar for Adidas with the McGrady, where you had to like pop out the back of the heel, and then like that was crazy. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I don't remember anybody buying those things. But yeah, so there was what a time to be alive. A lot of attempts, but I think it just picked up the pace with going into the 2000s, because then it became fly net, fly wire. Hyperfuse, all of those things where you could take away all of those bulky leathers and extra layers, where they were just trying to get smarter and lighter weight and adding more fused meshy uppers together, or those one piece uppers, because our shoes growing up, they had a lot of pieces, and now it's like one piece and it just wraps around half the time. So and I think that's what's changed, especially with the fly knit, and then it's like battle knit, and then then we've talked about like Elite series for Nike, where you had carbon fiber shanks on the outside of the heel, and then you had Teflon shoelaces, like these bulletproof shoelaces. You know what I'm saying? Apparently LeBron James does, or maybe John Morant, but another story for another day. But
shots fired, literally.
Take it, OG.
With you going back into the timeline, I'm wondering now, Shark, given where we are with the evolution of technology, have things gone way too far now with everything trying to be so advanced, everyone trying to up one another, to where people need to go back to the basics? So it's to the point now, we look at all of these brands. I'm not saying things can't get better, but I feel like the last few years, things have kind of tailed off, in which I'm not even motivated to try on a shoe at a store to see how the technology feels, because it's to a point now to where I'm just like, I'm not saying it's getting gimmicky, but it seems that way to me. Just wanted your take on that.
So that's a great question, and I'm gonna like go two different lanes really quick, but they're all on the same road, right? So, because I'm splicing hairs with the question, right? Of like, what's going on? Is it going too far, or do people not care anymore? You know what I'm saying? So, posing those two questions, I think the simple answer to me is, from my business mind, says people don't care. They don't care to know. And one of the reasons why I think they don't care to know is because of the source of the information, right? The brands put stuff out there, but they don't push their information through their mediums, right? We're in influencer world, so they are pushing their tech spec messages through influencers, and these are people who only have digital reach, but they're not the NBA player to say that this is that function. So who do you ask your question to, right? Do I size up? I get you see people put it on our page, what sizes or whatever, and we answer the question because we know and we've used them. Now, not everyone can answer the questions. You know what I mean? So I think that that's part of the psychology here is that, the brand isn't pushing the information about the tech direct to consumer. All right. We lost other mediums. Go back to our East Bay episode. That's tech spec heaven because it has everything about the shoe, the weight, the materials, an encyclopedia for everybody is gone. Okay. And now, do you even value that information? Do you care when you walk into the store? You said you're not motivated to walk in the store. Psychology, for me, says I'm not walking into the store to try on the shoe because no one's there to help me. There's no subject matter expert that just says that has been trained to say this material does this, this, and this. Did you know about that? If you wore the shoe 3 times and did this, it's really going to break it in. You know what I mean? Like let's just talk running. You need one person in the store that is a runner or knows about running to be able to fully sell running shoes. All right. I don't care if it's Foot Locker or whatever store. They have shoes for athletics. All right. So, but you're not thinking about that when you're hiring people, right? No, you're not. You know what I'm saying? So that's more of where we're at. It's just we're in the age of misinformation and too much information. Therefore, we're desensitized to even caring about what it is, right? Like imagine that other off-brand APL or whatever that had the campaign where the NBA banned the shoe, right? And again, in the beginning, the Jordans, shout out if you watched the Air movie, they banned the Jordan 1 because of the colorway and everything like that, right? And then that became the marketing campaign, we'll just pay the fine. But the NBA banned this shoe, and I actually did some research on it because I was like, what made that shoe? They said it gave players a competitive advantage. Now that shoe was tested against many other shoes, including Nike Shocks and some other stuff with the bounce tests. And like, do you just propel higher than other ones? Like, well, there were other shoes that propelled higher. That shoe actually had something in it that I've never seen where it looked dangerous to me. I was like, why don't we talk about this? In the forefoot, it literally has a spring in it, like a real spring. That looks like if it wore too hard, like you're not, wear that down on the blacktop and see how what your foot feels like after that. But my point is, the other test said that shoe, the based on the combination of materials and where they were placed and how they function, the cushioning and absorb the shock, and then like disperse the energy and then give it right back. You know what I mean? And that's what gives you the spring. I learned that the competitive advantage wasn't the shoe itself. All right. And no one really talked about that part. The competitive advantage is that if someone can, make more force, a bigger person, they will get more out of the shoe. You know what I mean? So that means that a bigger, harder cut person is going to get more spring and bounce back than a guard that's lighter or whatever. That's the competitive advantage, is that it reacts differently for every person. So there's no symmetry between it. It literally, if someone can conjure that motion up, that would help them better than the next person. You know what I'm saying? So I just thought that, like, look how nobody told that story. So again, Soul Material giving that clarity over popularity. You see it. We just, again, like, that's a lot of technology going on, and it was banned by the NBA. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow, even if you didn't sell it, like I'm sitting here like, why didn't that sell just because it was banned? Like, you could have just did a whole campaign about that, you know what I mean? But, because people didn't care, but so much they didn't put much into it. And then, like, if you were a hooper, there are a lot of hoop shoes, that are not the name brand. You know what I mean? Shout out to like Langston Galloway with the ethics, and then you have your brand blacks, and you have plenty other smaller brands that are doing stuff. Shoot, I learned recently that Amari Cooper has a shoe. It's called the Route Runner. You know what I mean? Like, really? He made his own shoe from scratch. You know what I mean? I was like, hey, for a football player to have a cross-training shoe, I was just like, hey, that's pretty cool. Doesn't look like anything special or whatever, but, I have all the expectations. You know what I mean? I like the initiative. You know what I mean? So there's plenty of other people that are doing similar things, but yeah, they lot going on with the technology. But that's why it's like, what's proprietary? What do people care about? You know what I mean? There are a lot of different shoes over in China, and the way it weighs and peak and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? They have some viable cushioning, proprietary, systems. You know what I mean? And I'm actually not surprised that they're not supported. That's because I feel like if you hoop, then you want the most comfortable shoe for your game. You know what I'm saying? But there's too much wishy-washy over the fence, on the fence. I'm in the game, but sneaker game, but I'm not really in it because your entry point was just the hobby, not the lifestyle of wearing the shoes or wearing them to perform. So I don't know.
Definitely. And close with that being said, Martin, I remember a few of your shoes. And this is technology I don't think you have mentioned yet, and I'm surprised you haven't. Maybe saving this for last. Was the Nike Zoom Air and how that changed the game in many fronts with the trainers and in the 90s and so forth. And the combination of not only the Zoom Air, but I remember on a couple of their models where they had the sole that had kind of like the soft oval spikes. And I think the combination of those two things made the cushioning and the fit just incredible in a lot of those models. So I want to shout the Zoom Air out as well, because that was definitely a game changer for me as far as comfort and performance. And there's a lot of materials that I have to really research to see, because I think that Jordan brand, they always bring something new and innovative to everything that they do with the regular Jordan model. And sometimes the fit is just too tight for my foot because I have a wide foot. But shout out to the Jordan 32. That's a Jordan I still ball until this day. And also the Jordan 30. Just the lace system and how those just worked were absolutely awesome. But now, being where we are, a fresh pair of New Balances, and I don't know what's an end cap. I'm not sure what the basic technology is, but the comfort of the shoes historically, being from Washington, D.C., that's the reason why New Balances really got on the map, is because guys were out in the streets doing what they were doing, and they wanted to be comfortable being out in the streets for 10, 12 hours at a time. And I am just impressed and also proud of how New Balance has continued to keep who and what they are as far as their identity. And they haven't wavered too much as far as particularly the stuff being made in USA or wherever it's made, and the quality of their materials and the quality of the fit and the performance. Usually when you have a pair of New Balances, as long as you don't get stuck in some kind of crazy rainstorm and kind of mud pile or in some kind of quicksand, you got them. And as long as it's not a white midsole, you got them for quite a while as far as them still looking fresh and still being wearable. So shout out to New Balances as well. But comfort wise, man, I'm all about New Balances right now, particularly the 992s and the 990 series. And they just keep evolving in the comfort to where whatever tweaks that they made the past 3 or 4 years, that's a shoe I go into a store and just try on and see what size fits the best. Don't need a special insole or anything. And so shout out to New Balance as far as that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like Zoom and stuff, like we've talked about in some other episodes too, because I've compared Zoom Air to the Reebok DMX technology, the way that you can literally feel the air chambers moving underneath your feet, and that functionality then got to the full length Zoom and stuff like that. And then you had and then it turned into visible Zoom because you couldn't see it, and then you can see it, and then there's always especially like the LeBron line has evolved some of the way that the pods work to have the Zoom pods now, and they protrude from the outside as well, with some of the later models. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm happy that Jordan brand was incorporating Zoom into some of their shoes, because don't sleep on the Carmelo Anthony line. You know what I'm saying? Over 3/4 of that line, those shoes were actually comfortable. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? And if you hooped and you really understand how the comfortable basketball shoes should function, he was really because they do have the Zoom and some air in the heels of them as well. And then Jordan, has evolved to have their own proprietary stuff like the flight plate, and they clearly took out some room underneath your art, because half of these models don't even, they're just, you can put your finger through the whole thing, because you still have that sole and that flight plate underneath, but they're like taking the art, and that's the where they minimize some of the materials underneath there, and it seems to be working pretty much. You actually don't see a lot of Jordans like blowing out like some of these other Nikes, to be honest with you. So they must be doing something right over there. And yeah, you got Zion Williams on your team, so you got somebody to battle test those shoes or whatever. So
Literally.
So yeah, a lot of functionality. There's so much more that we're probably not even touching on, but like we said, just giving you some highlights of the timeline of our lifespan of looking at sneaker technology, how it's evolved, what it meant to us, and just posing that rhetorical question out to our audiences: what does it mean to you? Do you care? Because we want you to care, and we wouldn't mind if we're part of one of your resources. So keep tuning in to the podcast you cheer for, and we'll break it down. Check us out on our YouTube channel and also on Instagram. Drop us some questions. Let us know. What questions you have about some technology. Right, be able to connect some dots for you.
Indeed.
All right? So, final words from the OG before we sign off.
I'm just looking forward to not depending on remakes and retros, and looking forward to just having a future episode in which there is some new technology, no matter the company, that really blows us away. And I'm looking forward to that episode. But for now, I'm kind of after the boost, man. It hasn't been anything new that I've tried that has really blown me away. So I'm hoping within the next year, there'll be something that's advertised or something that would be recommended, and we'll have episodes say, "Yeah, everyone check this out," because this technology right here is real. Like I said, it's so much out there now, with the variety and so many shoes, so many brands. I'm really not into just trying everything. I don't even have the time anymore, honestly, but I'm just looking forward to that day of having that feeling again, and us coming up here on a podcast you cheer for and breaking it down. And like you say, us peeling back those layers on that new technology, on that shoe that blew me away. Looking forward to that moment.
All right, there you have it. Another episode of Sneaker Business Talk in the books. So for the Soul Material Podcast, I'm T-Bart the Street Shark.
And OGEO, peace to you.
Signing off.